I learned so much about what's going on listening to you guys talk. I hear so much about the economy around the country from the successes and struggles that we've gone through in this room. It's powerful for me. I work with organizations to help their sales, right? And they're always asking me, what's going on with the rest of the community, the business community? But this group is really at the heart and the source of where the economy starts, right? Who was talking about our place? We go in early, we come out early. Somebody was saying something about that a little while ago. And I got to believe that if we're funding business, we go in early, we come out early. Is that fair? And this, okay. And you guys got to golf. And who was it who said my gift was not golfing with you today? And I so understand that. Think about it. And I wanted to go golfing about when I was 30 or so. I thought, I'll go golfing. And so I rented some clubs and I went out on the golf. Papago. Have you ever played Papago golf course? Right, okay. I don't know what hole it is. It might be it was one of them on the far side. And I got my club out. And I did everything that I thought you were supposed to do, right? In golfing, you got this thing where this thing is supposed to point here, am I right? And this thing is supposed to point here, and you got your feet, they're about shoulder width apart. Am I getting the guidelines down? Is this about right? Okay, because I went to whack at that ball, I reared back, and I whacked that ball, and it sailed long and 3 fairways to the right. You want to talk about an embarrassing moment in life? Imagine having to walk 3 fairways over to recover your golf ball with people coming up. And it seems like there's guidelines, there's rules about this in golf. I don't know what it is about that, but walking across fairways, I guess it's against the guidelines, huh? All right, and then a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I took a corporate retreat up to Flagstaff to go golfing. That was fun. Have you ever played Flagstaff Ranch? Flagstaff Ranch is a neat little course. It's got one hole that the tee box must be like 100 feet in the air over the green, right? And the 50 feet of it is just the elevation of the tee box, and the rest of it just kind of slopes away. And in the middle, there's this big gaping maw of a gully that's in the shape of a smile laughing at me when I was playing on that hole. I know it was laughing at me. And I hit the ball off the tee box, and then I went 100 feet down to where my ball was. And the vice president of marketing went ahead, and he was up there on the right, and there were some other people, laughing at me. And I went to take a whack at that ball. This was three years ago. And I hit that ball good, and it sailed, and it went right at the VP of marketing. I mean, it went right for him. And he ducked, and it pinged off the top of the golf cart, right, and went sailing off there. And he didn't talk to me for 2 years. I did you a favor by not golfing. I don't know that I get the guidelines of golf. In golf, you guys have rules and guidelines in golf, and I just think that they should have gutters like in bowling, right? If you ping that thing along the ground and it just goes off to the side, it's going to roll to the hole. That would be good, right? That's my idea of guidelines. I don't know. I don't get guidelines, but in golf. But I get guidelines in life. When I was talking to Bill about what's going on and what can I talk about, what can I bring value, what can I help you stay awake after, golfing and drinking all afternoon, what can we talk about? I came up with some things, and I really wanted to talk about what's relevant and powerful. And I think one of them is, how can we get our head right? How can we get ourselves in a good place so that no matter what happens, we're good to go? You're talking about being a cancer survivor, and tell me that wasn't difficult at times. There wasn't times when hope was kind of a problem, right? I mean, when we're finding, listen, every one of us in this room has gone through the same financial upheaval, and sometimes it's hard to have hope. Am I right? And sometimes it's hard to believe that there is a good day coming. And we look at what the government is doing today with not knowing what the fiscal cliff is going to do. We don't know who's going to be elected president, what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen with sequestration. And it seems like there's just waves and waves of financial ickiness from a Congress and a president that won't talk to each other, work together for our greater good. We just don't know. And it hurts and it eats at us. And so one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about is how do you deal with that? How do we just ignore that that's the case? Is that fair? And one of them, I think, has to do a lot with how we choose to live our lives. And by making a choice, what we're doing is creating guidelines for ourselves. Is that fair? Back in September 1982, 12-year-old girl wakes up with a headache, feeling nauseous, feeling not good. She goes and knocks on her parents' door. It's dawn, and they give her a pill, send her back to bed, and they go back to bed, and they wake up. And at 7 in the morning, they get up, and they found her dying on a bathroom floor. The pill they had given her was poison. And in the next few days, 7 more people died in the Chicago area. Who's from Chicago? Because they'd given them Tylenol, and Tylenol had been laced with cyanide. And it was a monstrously bad time for those guys. And the company, the Tylenol company, didn't even know what was happening until the medical examiner finished and said, yeah, it's the Tylenol that's doing it. And they called the company. And the company, you want to talk about a bad time, we've gone through a bad time. You want to talk about a bad time, imagine being the chairman of the board of Tylenol and finding out that you're responsible for the deaths of 7 people. And they had some choices to make. That was a product at that time that had 37% market share. 37% market share for Tylenol at that time was actually better than the next 4 competitors combined. And not only was there sadness for the people who were dead and in pain, the families, but there was, what do we do as a company? On one hand, we're going to lose the company. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, their market share went to 7%. And they had to make some choices. What do we do? The guy, James Burke, was the chairman of the company at the time. He took 7 of his top people. He immediately made them a strategy team. He said, people first, property second. And they yanked $100 million worth of product off the shelves. Fact was, they didn't put the cyanide in the Tylenol, and they knew that. They weren't in trouble as a company other than people didn't trust the product. And they voluntarily yanked $100 million worth of product off the shelf. And they turned around and bought back product that was in people's medicine cabinets. And their market share plummeted to 7%. In 1943, the chairman of Johnson & Johnson, who was the ultimate owner of Tylenol, the chairman wrote a credo just before they went public. And it was about 4 paragraphs, perhaps the best treatise on public or corporate responsibility that had ever been written. It was certainly unheard of back in 1943. And in 4 paragraphs, he talks about the responsibility to the environment, the responsibility to the vendors, the responsibility to the public, to the doctors and nurses who they served, to their shareholders, the people involved, everybody in the mix. And the essence in that credo was public first, property second. So when James Burke was faced with a $100 million bankrupt the company decision, and he had to assign the duty to make some decisions to the strategic team he developed, he repeated that credo. Public first, property second. And with that hesitation, they pulled $100 million worth of product off the shelves, put themselves in a position to go bankrupt. The rest of the story, if you follow it, is a year later, their position, they'd gotten back about to 30% market share. And they had done it because the public trusted them now, because they had gone through the effort of pulling that product off the shelf to be safe for the public. Because of the credo written in 1943, effectively the guidelines of the company, they were able to operate quickly without fear of recrimination from people they were responsible to. And because the public understood that they were for the public first, the public started buying the product again. This is a story that's told in PR schools everywhere, right? This story is probably one of the best comeback stories of a company in crisis ever. And I share that with you because we're all small business owners, and we're all people. And we have guidelines that we live by on a daily basis. I'm not sure we always do them intentionally. A long time ago, I made a decision. It was after I first got married and lived in a place out in Outer Mesa that was sort of country, sort of rural. And the decision was this. And I believe every man really kind of has to make these decisions. It's, if there's an intruder in my house, will I pull the trigger? Because if you're making that decision when you're facing an intruder, it's probably too late to start going through the moral dilemma of, do I kill this person or not, right? It doesn't matter to me what choice somebody makes. It's just important that we make the choice before we get there. Is that fair? And the other choice that I thought it's important for men to make is, remember I was newly married. If I'm being tempted by another woman, will I stray? It's a choice you have to, because by the time you get there, it's too late to be making that choice. Am I right? And it occurs to me, as I was thinking through this talk, that every day, in a million ways, we all make a million different choices on how we'll choose to behave. If you've done a business plan, you've made choices on how you choose to behave. If you have mission, vision, and values as a statement, you've chosen how to behave in certain circumstances. Is that fair? Right? Okay. And so, what if we created guidelines about who we are and how we'll operate? If our financial system hits this level, what will we do? If our health goes south, what will we do? How will we operate? If we start making these choices today and we do it consciously, we're in a position to both guide our lives in that direction and deal with things when they happen. We don't know what Congress is going to do. We don't know what the executive branch of the government is going to do. All we know is we got to keep trucking, right? I am a partner with John Maxwell. John Maxwell is probably the most prolific author on leadership in the world. And in that partnership, I have obviously a lot of his material. He's got a book called Today Matters. There's 12 guidelines for life in there. And I so encourage you, if you want guidelines to start thinking about what it is you want your life to look like, how I'll manage my life if our life is peaky. It doesn't matter if it's financial or family issues or whatever, right? Then I'll ship you those guidelines. I'll do that for you, okay? You just have to let me know you want that. But my hope, my heart is to help everybody I can be in a position not to have to struggle as much as the last few years have been a struggle. Every time I hear you guys talk, 2008 was a demarcation point where everything went in the toilet, right? Okay, and we don't know what's going to happen, but if we plan for it, we're in a better position than if we don't. Is that fair? And so if you want those guidelines, I'm happy to give them to you. And another one, probably the greatest history book of guidelines in the world is responsible for most of our law and our moral code. It has things like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, things like that in it, right? And I'm not here to talk about anybody's faith or what it is, but I'm fascinated. One of those lines in that book was, and now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. And we all love love, right? Love is good. We like it. Remember falling in love? Isn't that the best feeling in the world, right? But while love might be the greatest, hope is no slouch. Am I right? So how do we find hope? Where do we find hope? What do we do? Where does hope come from? When we're in the positions we're in, when we sometimes have to struggle, where do we find hope? And I'm here to say hope comes from our dreams. And I got to believe some of us lost the capacity to dream over the years, right? Has it been a struggle? We let go of our dreams. Remember being a little kid? Did you ever dream of being an astronaut or a nurse or a NASCAR driver? I still dream of being a NASCAR driver every day on 5:30 on the 101. Being a NASCAR driver would be good. Right? We lose our dreams. I'm reminded of a story about this little kid. You may have heard this, it's been around a while. This little kid, he's got a ball and a bat. Wait, he had the bat in this hand. He had the ball in this hand. And he's throwing the ball up in the air and catching it, talking to himself. He said, here comes the greatest batter in the world. This guy is going to knock this ball out of the park. And he takes the bat, he puts it on his shoulder, he tosses the ball up in the air, he takes a swing, and he has to pick the ball up off the ground because that's where it fell. It's okay. He picks the ball up off the ground. He said, here he comes again. He's about to take a second, whack at the ball. If he hits this thing, it's going forever. Here comes the windup. Here comes the throw. He missed the ball. All right, picks the ball up again. Throws it up in the air. Takes a swing, and this time, he misses. And he starts talking again. He said, isn't that the greatest pitcher you ever saw? Look at that pitcher go, man. He struck that guy out without a problem. And he was dreaming. And that's our life, right? If we dream about what we want, we begin to have hope. I don't know if you guys read books, but when you read a book, what happens is you end up getting into characters, finding stuff that matters to you and it resonates and it pulls you forward. And when we're stuck in some of our places, some of the downsides, some of our hopeless moments, that hope, those dreams, those things we want will pull us through. Is that fair? This is what happens when we hope. This is the dynamics of people. I told you I was a sales coach, right? And you told everybody how miserably I failed in my first job in sales, right? And I did. I got to tell you, in a year and a half, I sold zip. A year and a half later, my dad called me into his office, and he said, "Son, I got to let you go." And I can only think to this day, you know, if I were the manager, I would have never got a year and a half out of me. And then it occurred to me he was my dad. He had to give me time. Right? If somebody didn't sell a thing for you in a year and a half, they wouldn't get a year and a half, would they? Right. He gave me a year and a half. I had to find my way back to believing that I had what it took. I was a ski instructor for a while, and I used to run with people who didn't believe they could ski. It's like the biggest, if you've ever been snow skiing, downhill. If you've ever been snow skiing, and you've seen people on the mountain, some of them are crashing and burning. It's really spectacular, right? I mean, sometimes it's like a yard sale. Stuff goes everywhere. And some people are really scared. Coaching or instructing skiing is one of the greatest laboratories for helping people overcome fear, ever. And we get these things, and I had a chance to really work with this with people. And here's the thing. You get into something that you want. You start looking at what I want for my business, or how can my business make a difference? And you say, okay, I'm going to do this. And immediately what happens is, how? The thought in our head is, how are you going to do that? Or can I even do this? Do you ever have a moment in your head where you say, can I do this? Can I? Okay. Hope and dreams convert can I to how can I. That's it. That's all I want to say. There's a guy who has a video out called Start With Why. His name is Simon Sinek. Have you ever seen it? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, I'm gonna ask you to just make a quick note on Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And he does a wonderful piece. This is a TED Talk you can find on YouTube. And he talks about how people operate from our why. Why do I want this? What's meaningful to me? And he talks about it as a biological function. Not psychological, biological. That in the place in our brain that our why lives, the emotional drivers of who we are, that space is 4 times larger than the rest of our brain. Right? We have this thing about wanting, it's hope will pull us through. And so if we dream and give ourselves that room, our hope, our why pulls us through. And the thing that happens is hope begins to turn to passion. What is passion? If I were to ask you, what would you say passion is? The intense drive to make something happen, right? It becomes our purpose. It becomes who we are as people. Michael, we're equipment funders. We're brokers. What do you mean passion? This isn't a passionate job. This is where we have numbers and metrics to work with. This is where we go find business. This isn't a passion job. I get it. But when we live from passion, our passion, things change. And I would suggest to you that there are ways to understand how this is a passionate job. You see, there's a story of a young woman named Agnes. When Agnes was 8 years old, her father, who was a politician in the town that they grew up in, died and left her alone. And Agnes started feeling a fascination with people who served others. And in that fascination, it grew. And when she was 12 years old, she made a decision that that's what she wanted to do. And at 18, she left home. And she ran off to Ireland, where she learned how to study English and teach English. And she spent 20 years teaching English to people in other countries. And she became the headmistress. And she was on a train ride in the country. And she looked at all those people who were poor and destitute and disabled and crashed. And she said, no, I'm doing a lot being a headmistress, but I want to do more. And this overtook her soul. It overtook her soul. When she went through her religious vows, she became a nun. When she changed her name, she wanted to name herself Therese de Lisieux, who is apparently in the Catholic Church the patron saint of missionaries. That's what she wanted to name herself. It turns out that somebody else already had that name in the convent that she got ordered in, and she couldn't take it, so she used the Spanish translation instead, and that name was Teresa. And so she was Sister Teresa. But the day she was riding that train, realizing how much she could do for poor people, she effectively became Mother Teresa in that moment. And I don't know if you know the rest of the story, but she started out with about 13 people beginning to change the world and who she was, what she did. And she grew that effort to over 4,000 people working in that ministry with her, changing people's lives. And it wasn't just something she wanted to do. It was just who she was as a person. And when we get there, when we drive that becomes who we are. That becomes what is meaningful. That goes way beyond the money that we make it, right? It served other people. But Michael, we're equipment lenders, equipment financiers. What are you talking about? We don't have that. And in her lifetime, I don't know if she won the Nobel Prize, she won the Order of Merit from the United States, the United Kingdom, the Gallup poll. She was the most admirable woman in the world 18 times by a significant margin, right? And it was only because she was living from what was important to her inside. I don't think you get it, right? Well, we're equipment lenders. Yeah, I kind of do. What makes you cry? What makes you sing? What makes you want to dance? That's where our passion lives. Yeah, but we're equipment lenders. Oh, you don't get it, right? When we live from what's important to us, when we live from the strengths, when we look at how we were gifted as who we are, how our lives, what we can do with our strength, that begins consistent with our passion and our purpose as people. But we're equipment lenders. It doesn't matter. This room is filled with the fabric of the free enterprise system. That when we do our jobs in this room, people get jobs. When we fund a truck, what happens? There's a guy who gets to drive a truck. Maybe he's just replacing a truck he already had. But that truck, the old truck, does what? Goes to Mexico or goes somewhere. Somebody else gets a job. Maybe we funded hospital equipment and we save a baby's life. I mean, really, when you think about it, if you funded a defibrillator, how many lives did that defibrillator save? I don't know. But if it was somebody's, you saved a life. Does that make sense? But we're equipment funders. Oh, what we do matters every day. I am honored to be in this room with you guys. I don't think it's easy for us to recognize as we wake up in the morning and we realize we have another day of the battle to find customers. We have another day of the battle to find people who will help us fund our deals or people who need what we do. We don't, when our wives gripe at us, or our husbands, as the case may be, or somebody gripes at us, as our kids give us a hard time, it is often hard to recognize, but that this room is filled with heroes because what we do every day is go out there and make the world happen. We make the world a better place. Is that fair? And how often have we thought about ourselves as heroes? I'm looking around at your faces, and some of you are saying, right on. And some of you are saying, what? And we're back in that place of not necessarily belief. We don't believe it. But what happens if you get somebody a job? So you fund a crane. And by funding a crane, somebody builds a building. And if somebody builds a building, you got a landlord who's making money. You got a crane operator who's making money. You got a construction team who's making money. And you have changed a community. And that begins to make a difference. So I think we're heroes. I'd like you all to say I'm a hero, but I don't think you have the guts to say it out loud. So who is this guy in front of us? Can you say that for me? Can you say I'm a hero?
No, I'm a hero.
That's good. We can do it better though. Come on, one more time. I'm a hero. It's an honor for me to be able to spend a few moments. I hope I've been able to pour value into what we do. If I can do that for you, I've fulfilled what's important to me. If anything that I've said has value for you, we'll have a video, and I'm happy to make it available for you. If anything I've done has value, give me a chance. I'd love to see you guys do good at what you do, because what you do is freaking heroic. Thank you so much for having me in tonight.